can we do with these fabulous 1920s glamour girls? Hello and welcome to the Treasured Page. I'm Melanie and this is our quiet crafting space. I'm having a look at these wonderful digital kits from Clee Black Creations today. And these are the 1920s roaring glamour girls from the Etsy shop for Clee Black Creations. I'll leave the link below. There are 3 sheets in this set. We get this one with 8 wonderful portrait images, nice close-ups of these 1920s women. You can see all with the beautiful dripping in pearls and bejeweled dresses. It's absolutely wonderful, that amazing hairstyles that they've spent so long to achieve. And that's those ones there. And then we've got smaller ones here which allow to be able to see the costume or the dress, the beautiful lace work. Look at this dress, how risky was that? Really, really fun. Glamour images from the 1920s with the beads and the brooches and the rings and all the wonderful things, the headdresses, all the pearls just dripping in jewels. Really decadent times. So those are what we've got today. And these are glassine bags. Glassine bags always make me think of this era, especially these photographs. They look like they've come from an album where you might have that wonderful crinkle sound. So I thought that that was really fitting for those images. Sandwich bags, deli bags, any kind of bags is what we're playing with today. So we're here at the Messy Art Desk. I just want to carry on staining, antiquing and just generally bringing in some texture to these glassine bags. There's a lovely texture when they have water or ink or something on them. I've got a water paintbrush here which is filled with water. You unscrew it, fill up the little bottle and then you get some water coming out. These are just little ink pads. We've got vintage photo, but I'm actually working with walnut stain here and I'm putting water through the brush and then we're just going to carry on with that colour. It's a really quick way of doing something without having to use much ink. And just to let you know, these are ink pads, the mini ones that I bought in 2020. So that is 3 years ago. Still going strong, still got plenty of pigment on them and still helping me in my creative journey as I just relax and put down colour anywhere I feel might be nice to have some vintage aging and just transport us back to a different time, somewhere away from the modern day world where we don't have to think about all the things. We can just relax and gently craft ourselves to another time and place and gently settle into it, unwinding from the week, unwinding from the day, setting ourselves up for the day perhaps. Take the processing part of our brain where we have to do the washing up, do the housework, park the car, pay the bills, blah blah, that side of the brain, and switch it off. Just switch it off. Doesn't matter, we don't need to phone anyone at the moment. We've set this time aside for creativity. And this is how you transport yourself from that process-driven mindset into something more fun. We start unlocking our creative side. We start seeing things in a different way. We start thinking about things, how we'd like them to wind up, how we'd like to feel and what we can do in between, and then we just go with it and bring in those funny patternings there with the squares and see if we don't like it, we just do a bit more, go over it. These are water reactive inks, so that's why they're blending. They blend in nicely as you add the water. I'm going to really go over it. Loads of pigment in these inks. They are really good. This is the back side of it anyway. Lovely. So that's that one. Just paint a bit with that. It will get lighter as it dries, so don't be worried about that. Just keep going. It's fine. Blending it out a bit. Just another way of using the ink pads. They don't always have to be just for the edges of things. You can do larger projects. And now let's think of the decadence of the times. And I've got antique linen here. So I'm going to put some water down. Rub over the antique linen. Ink. Spread that around. And we'll just do one that's more grungy and one that's a little bit more subtle, and then you can see what you might prefer. So this is the antique linen, which is a gentle aging there, whereas this has really gone through the mill. Okay. Or spray it if you've got a spray to hand. I could have done that, that would have been a good idea. And I'm just going to do the same on the back, just using that ink. Just spread it up there. And then if you turn them upside down, the pigment will sink to the top. Because we've putting water on them, but all we're doing is activating the pigment within the pads. So yeah, they are 3 years old, still going strong. I've used them, I can't tell you how many times. So that's picked up a bit of blue off of the background here, off of this scruffy drop sheet, which is fine because I quite like the idea that I might be bringing in a bit of blue on this one. And we'll just add the water and move it around. We're getting some crinkling going down here, that's just really lovely. And just pull that colour up a little bit and we'll leave that. We'll just go in that backwards L shape there. So that's fun. All right, here are the paper bags, all dry and have that wonderful crinkle. They've slightly lost the sheen of the glassine bag, but that's okay because they've retained that wonderful sound. Using the same ink, I'm just going to go around the edges here. That was walnut stain just going around there. It's okay. We might even ink around here as well if we wanted to do that. We could sort of come in with a bit more of an ink edge if we want to. So this image has just been printed onto photocopy paper. Nothing special about it, very straightforward. We've just cut it out, ink around the edge in the usual way, and you could just add that. You could stick that straight on and that could be perfectly fine. You could then put a sentiment, you could put a little bit of a lace trim around there. There's lots that you could do. I've got a bit of sort of satin fabric here. I don't know if we could make this look any smarter than it does, but it is a remnant. Might be able to get something there. Oh, actually that works. If I come about there, try not to cut my bag. Let's move that out of the way. Okay, I'm just going to rip this to get a nice frayed piece of fabric. It's not really behaving, so I'm just going to dampen that down a bit, and then I can wiggle the fibres into position a bit better. There we go. I don't have to go to the iron now because we've just moved the fibres into where they need to be. And then I can add this on here, and I think the next step for that would either be glue it down with a fabric glue or go round with some stitching. So I think I like the idea of the stitching. So I've just put this on background paper here. This is another one of the background papers that you can get from the Clee Black Creations Etsy site. So these are nice sort of ledger lined papers with splats and everything all on there, looking nice and textured. I've used that a lot, especially in the Marianne North journal. So you can start to see sort of when you've got an aging background how that could look. There's a white border there which we'd have to cut away, but that's just so that we stop being distracted by my scruffy sheet here, which I'm just using for my inking purposes. I've got here distressed ink in linen and one in weathered wood. I'm just thinking perhaps I can bring in a smoky aspect to this and dull down perhaps some of this. So I'm just going to use the oxide ink in Antique Linen, and I just want to see if I can just bring some of that down, bring in that smoky environment that you would have had in the 1920s. They all had those cigarettes in long sticks that they used to have as part of the party scene. It's just going to tone down the background and give a matte finish on this bag, still keeping it within the caramel colours, the chocolate colours of that vintage sepia image there, but just bringing that a little bit more into a muted toned background. And I think what would be really nice here, and what I haven't got, is a stencil with a swirling pattern. I just cannot find them. I've turned over the craft room trying to look for these things, and I've obviously misplaced it. I have no idea. I've been looking for them for weeks. So we're obviously not meant to use stencil for this project. I'm going to put on a grey as well. See if that adds anything. We'll just do some sweeping effects up here. Okay, I'm trying to do two different styles here so you can see, but still in a vintage manner, because this could be very much beachy. Bring in some of the weathered wood grey down here. Some very fine embossed paper might look just lovely behind there, just to give a sense of the era. So we're just working very basically with what we've got and just sort of playing around with some ideas, seeing if we like them, bringing in playing cards. Perhaps that was something that she would have done at the party. And then just, I think I definitely want some patterning or something on the back here. I'm going to reach into my stamps and see if I've got some botanics that might work here. Just, I'm going to use this Hickory Smoke ink. It's a permanent one, so that won't be moved, and I'll just see if I can get a little sort of sense of something from the era in the background with another one of those. That's a bit better. Just something, just needs something in the background. Lovely. Something a little bit more embellished, something a little bit more Art Deco. Let's go with the Hickory Smoke again. Probably want black, can't find that either, so we'll go with what we've got. And I'm just going to bring in that there where those images wanted to join, just with a botanical flower. It's quite pretty in the background. Yeah, just a little hint of something going on. Bring in those leaves like that. Pretty. And another one here. That's it. That's great. That's it. So that can be glued down. You can see very subtle, just using very muted tones here, just to give a vintage vibe. Keep it very, very simple. Okay, I've got this, which is tarnished brass. It's an ink stain from Tim Holtz. I'm just sort of got the idea to just flick some on here just to give a little decadence, little sparkle. That's probably enough. So that's how that's going to look. We're just going to leave that to dry. And here we have the final piece. So the splatters have dried. I've glued on the image. I've put it on an angle, and I've attached some little crystals there just to have that nod to the past, this decadent. She's dripping in pearls and jewels, and I think that that's really sweet just to have that shiny element. Bring a little bit of theatrics to it and 3D, and then the tassel trim here, which is vintage. I found this in my grandmother's sewing box that I found amongst her things. So there we go. That is really special, and if that was an image of somebody from your past, you could definitely add that to a special journal that you're putting together from people from your family tree. It's quite a nice way to honour that storytelling of your history. So there we go. So that's the 1920s roaring glamour girls, and that's one way of embellishing a bag, making it look really super, even though it is still quite grungy and scruffy, we have managed to bring a bit of drama to it, so I'm pleased with that. That's lovely. Now I've got this, and I'm just going to see how we might be able to put together something else of a similar nature in a different colourway. Okay, I've had a little break. I've been playing around with some paint just for another project, so that's why we've got a green smudge there now. This is all dried. I'm very happy with that, and now I'm bringing in this bag. And while I was playing about with a brayer and some ink, I don't know if that's showing up, but I have put a little bit of this shimmer Deco Art metallic paint, which is in a champagne gold, and I just went to clean off my brayer really, and I was able to add a little bit of the gold sheen onto that bag. I just thought that that lent itself to adding in a more of a decadent texture. I think the image that I'm going to use is this one here, because the girl is facing forwards, making eye contact. She's also looking really confident, and I love that energy. Take that, and then I'll just cut out the other side. Now I'm left with this, so I can sort of see how it might go, how I might like it, whether I want to keep it as a framed image, whether I want to fussy cut her out a bit more, which is another option. I might like her on this gold background, and also what I've got here is fairy butterfly fussy cuts from Clee Black Creations. There we can see that. There's a whole set of these, and these are the larger ones that come through for the fairy butterfly. She also has some sepia toned coffee butterflies, which are also delicious. They're the same shapes, but they are muted coffee tones, and they look lovely for any grungy projects and anybody doing some vintage journaling where they just don't want to bring in colour. But I'm bringing in colour on this one, and we kept it quite muted. We might bring in a butterfly. That could be fun. There are some others in the set as well, so I haven't printed it all out, but there's lots of different sizes to play with. This is a very beautiful purple one. That might come and look nice, or this one would work. So we might want that up there. Lovely embellished images to work with. I think I like this one. These colours seem to work, so I'm going to cut out this rounded butterfly here. And if you were to go over to Brigitta's site, Clee Black Creations, on Etsy, and if you have any questions at all, you can write that to her and she will answer you in English, no problem. There is no problem there, no language barrier, so she will definitely translate and give you an answer in English, and you will be able to ask her any questions, anything that you might have about the digital kits. So that is all fine, but we'll just have a look and see as a composition whether we want to do a similar slanted angle. Maybe we want this one straight and then the butterfly swooping in, and just have something like that, and back it with more fabric and repeat the process of what I've already done. We could have trim or lace along the bottom. Let's just try and cut her free of this black background. Okay, so we've cut that. Just to recap, I have used antique linen for the lighter shade, and I used broken china in the Distress water-based inks to create the colours on the background here. Now what I think is going to look quite fun is to separate this butterfly. We'll lose the little feelers there, and I'm just going to cut it in half, and then I've got the wings, and we can angle them up. So now she's got wings, now she's really going places. So we've got this fabric, which is a lining fabric. I was given this a long time ago by a friend who did sewing and now no longer does. I could equally dye some sari silk as well, or I could dye some lace. So I'm not sure where we go with this, but perhaps that's quite pretty. Perhaps we want a little border and echo what she's got going on her head. Well, this is a wonderful project. It's got me pulling out all sorts of little scraps of trim in the search for some ribbon that I know I've got somewhere but I can't find, which was black with some gold in it, but actually I think that the black is the wrong thing. I've found that, which is really sweet. But look at this. How dramatic does this look? How theatrical. I really, really like that. It's whether I want to add that or not, but I probably would if I knew what the project was. But how sort of boho brilliant is that? I love that. But I wanted to keep it simple because not everybody has these pieces. But you may have a little bit of fabric that you can dye a blue using your ink. And so we're just going to stick to that for now. And yeah, so I've been pulling out all sorts. Got my lace, a little bit of trim. I found this circular cut out there, so maybe that could go with something. And even found this. What a sort of wonderful vibe to bring in some really old vintage junk jewellery. Look, this is really tatty, but still fabulous. So that could even go on the front of a soft covered journal, and these sort of things could be within. So it just gives you some ideas if you are going round the thrift shops and the Goodwills and the charity shops and the junk sales and all the maybe looking at people's things. Maybe you've got these in your collection, or they used to belong to a loved one and you're just wondering what on earth to do with it. And when there's not so much of emotional attachment, there's no sentiment anchoring these things to you to make them, it's sort of impossible to craft with. But when you find other people's things and you can just get a little sense of that nostalgia and that maybe the era that you want to work in, that's really fun. So I'm going to stick with the same format and layout and going to perhaps put some patterning behind there. Then, all right, so I just glued that on there. I've used matte medium. I'm using gel matte medium. Okay, and now using a glitter glue, I'm just going to piece on my wings here where I think they should go. Yeah, I think that's a good position for them. Slightly go around the edge there. Okay, the danger with using a wet glue on a digital kit is that you could get some colour movement, which has happened here, but I actually like it because it ages the piece, and we're just going to go with it. Perhaps a stick glue wouldn't have done that, so just to be mindful. Okay, so now I'm putting down some matte medium for this fabric. Okay, so I'm going to just put that there. Okay, I've put matte medium on the back here, and I'm putting this down. Push her down into position there. Okay, this is the trim that I've used on the project before, so that's that. And then I've just got a lovely length of it, which is really sweet. So I'm just going to cut a similar length and I'm going to add it to the blue project. And I've also got this flower here, which has got a 3-dimensional sponge on the back, which I'm just removing, or rather it's fallen off because these are quite old and they would add more bulk than is necessary. So I just take that off, and then I will be gluing that on with an art glitter glue, and I will be gluing this on with a Fabri-Tac. So let's have a look at how that will look. All right, here we are. So I've got the trim on the bottom looking really, really nice. And I've added the flower there just to take off that corner edge of the line of her arm coming down and then bringing this bit here. So we've got one there, but that's not too bad. What I want to do now is see if I've got a sentiment, and I think that that's going to be the way to go with this, because this lady to me just looks so confident. I would like to add something that captures the essence of this girl going forwards and really making things happen. So I've had a look through these. This is Tim Holtz again, Ideology, Small Talk, and I have come up with brave wings she flies, because that is, first of all, it's a good size to fit down the bottom there, and it's perfect because we've given this lady wings. If I can just off-center it there just a little bit, just to create a very small step so it's not completely lined up, and that will break up that line going down there. So just to show you, it comes off and steps down, it breaks up that line there. So that's what I'll aim to do. I'm going to give it a bit more glue just so that we know that it will stick to the fabric. I think the art glitter glue here will have enough grabs. I'll just add that in there, bring it along and just make sure that it doesn't line up with that edge. And I think that that is absolutely fine. And what I can then do is add this to a journal, and later on I can decide if it wants further embellishment, whether it wants a tab. Just to show you, it could even just want some fabric samples, a cluster. It probably doesn't need anything, but sometimes we just like to add more, don't we? And if that's the case, then you could. Maybe another one of the butterflies, but I'm definitely happy with that as a little project. And so that's now a lovely functional bag, complete with a sheen of the glassine that I've added in with the gold. I think that's really pretty. I think there's enough going on there. We've got this lovely lace here, the white of the flower, sort of ivory cream colours all blending through. Just picks out the headdress, the wings pick out the blue, and everything is working. So real fun vintage look there, and this one as well. And they will work really nicely as a set. Just wanting to show you a different way of how you can use those images by fussy cutting around them or keeping it in a framed image, and also still being able to bring in some decadence if we wanted to up here and create a little tab which will then bring in a bohemian feel to it. So there's that as well. That's options for these. There is definitely a place to put more embellishment if it needs it. And they'll just look amazing in a journal, and if you add some ephemera pieces, then it all starts to tie in and make sense, give a real sense of the 1920s, but also it could go into a modern journal and just be a nod to the past, some memory that you want to think about, some energy that you want to take forward. With brave wings she flies. That's great. If you want to do something over the weekend, then by all means download the images from Clee Black Creations on her Etsy site. Do have a look at the links in the description box below, and you'll be able to find the butterfly images and the 1920s roaring glamour girls, and then you can make them even more embellished as you so wish. I'm adding a couple of crystals there. I can't help myself. I'm just going to add them there just to tie in. This project has really brought out some unusual supplies that I don't always use. It's really got me thinking about different trims and being able to go through my things, looking out the more sort of sumptuous, decadent things and considering them, and looking at some of my supplies that I've got. So I can definitely go on now and make some more, and they will be really, really great just to sit down and play about with. So I hope you've enjoyed that project. I hope that you'd have a go. So if you've got some images like that, or you can fussy cut some of these out of the digital download, then by all means go and see if you'd like to have a go at that. And then obviously think about where else you might like to put butterflies or clusters and add them to the journal. Would you hinge them in? Would you glue them down? Would they tuck somewhere? Would they be a belly band with maybe a tag or something inside and keep some of the lace or the tasseling free? But a really fun way to use trim, and perhaps that would look really nice just ever so slightly tucking out of the end of the journal. So if this was your journal page, you could have it like that, all stuck down, but the tassels would then fall out the bottom and really give some interest to the journal, particularly if you had one further back as well. So there we go. That's a little set, and two different ways in which you can apply colour and bring a different mood to your projects, depending on what you would like to convey for your own creativity. So thank you ever so much for watching. Do please like and subscribe. Leave a comment below if you thought that that was worth your time, and give me a thumbs up if you'd like to see more projects coming up. And above everything else, just slow down and make crafting time for you. Bye bye now.